What's going on, Workforce? Brian here.
Chris here.
And today we're doing a deep dive into a new interview coming out of Famitsu with Yoshi-P talking about patch 5.5. As a note of just kind of a little show note here, this is going to be a long one. This is using Google Translate. Chris is going to be our interpreter. I looked at it and I said, I already struggle reading Chris. If you're comfortable being kind of the voice here. And he said, yes. And but before we dive in, I just want to say, Chris, have you checked the new links below, like these videos with all that new merch that's been posted today?
I think it might be time for your beanie to maybe step aside sometimes.
I actually ordered
Beanies,
mine.
new water bottles.
I ordered mine like 5 minutes ago, so it's like it is on its way. So I'm gonna have a new actual official Work to Game beanie. We'll have to retire the old greenie here, and we'll keep him around. He'll still be here from time to time. But yeah, guys, if you guys are interested and you want to either support the channel or you want to rep some Work to Game merch, we have those links. Chris has been working with a very talented artist, and so the one that's been helping us with our emotes is also helping us with our merch. So thank you very much for that. Anyway, let's dive in. Let's not waste another minute here, and let's go in through this detail. There's some information, guys, if you're interested in an open beta for PS5 that will be later in this video. Again, like I said, this is a long one. Buckle up. Let's go ahead and dive in. Chris, I'm going to leave it to you, and I'm just going to be here for comic relief.
There's a lot here. Okay. So this is Yoshi-P on patch 5.55. This is Dawn's Deadly Battle. We know we're getting there. There are going to be some word changes with patch names and content names. And so just keep in mind that when the live translation team keeps something over, just trying to stress that out. This is very long. And so let's go ahead and just dive straight into what is the first question. I want to draw the difficulty to 1 heart properly. This time I would like to ask about patch 5.5, Dawn Deadly Battle, which is Death Unto Dawn. First of all, it is the main story. The showdown with the Galamar Empire is the big draw. But with the final decision be over the finale of the Dawn Moon, can you tell us the highlights of this main story?
Please tell us the story.
Can you just go ahead and tell us now? That'd be great. We'd get quite the scoop. So Yoshi-P says, in patch 5.55, Eorzea finally becomes one. I hope you can capture it with such an image. Now, the word empire is a bit more difficult as a nuance. For the Galamar Empire, which that's not what we call them.
Garlean, yeah. But yeah.
Garlean. Has already begun to fall, moving to create a new empire that each general is ideal to, rather than acting for the ideals that someone has set out as a country. This actually gets addressed, I think, in one of my posts with FS. They are told as threats in the main story, in the Werito War, and in The Queen, which is what we're doing right now. The hero faces it, and Eorzea resists as one. Of course, we will also resist the uproar caused by Xenos and Fandaniel, who call themselves Telephoroi. I don't know what they're going to call themselves in English if that name's already in game, but already we're seeing pronouns are drastically different. But I think he gave a lot more here than I would have expected.
Yeah. Namely, even at the top of it, it's saying that patch 5.55 is scheduled to be implemented in late May. So we know we've got the big event in May, so we won't seem to have to wait from FanFest to that. From here, though, what stood out to me the most was when Eorzea will finally become one. What? Is he talking about a rejoining? Is he talking about how, all these shards are going to be becoming one? Or is he just talking about how, as a people, all of this is going to be finally into one nation? And then who's the leader of that nation? There's so many ways that I take this, and I cannot wait.
I mean, we saw that at the end of 1.0, right? So
Yeah.
for people that joined this game in 2.0 or later, 1.0 is that content is gone forever. And so that was a chance. So without spoiling anything you could already be in, 1.0, there's no way to experience this. The nations had to come together to fight a conflict. And they had to stand together. And so that they were one, and that is what set them apart from the Garland threat, and that's what gave them an advantage. In 40k lore, we see that a lot, where Chaos is more powerful than the Imperium, and in Warhammer 40k, the reason Chaos cannot triumph over Imperium is because they cannot stand as one. So in the story, the people of the Eorzean Union still have no idea what's going on in patch 5.55. Do you recognize what's happening? We don't know why, and we don't know why and complete quickly right away. But towards the finale, we can gradually reveal or infer events. It's not a case of fighting in the Orzi countries. So what happens in the midst, we'll find out the truth while dealing with it. We plan to deliver it in part 1 and part 2. I think that the development of the last is not as old as the time of Liberator of the Red Lotus, which I assume is a previous patch title.
Red Lotus, I think, is essentially what Stormblood was called. Okay. Yeah, so when we talk about that, I could be slightly misconstruing that, but just continue. Yay, Google Translate.
I think this was a much more typical answer. I think this was much more of like a, we'll know when we know.
Yeah.
This time there is already a mysterious tower, and the player knows that Xenos and Fandaniel are in the dark. As we head from that state to the finale of the Dawn Moon, I'm still interested in whether there is anything more. There is also a digital fan fest in between, so I think there are elements that are hidden because it is a spoiler. Yoshi-P says, of course, release of the Dawn, the finale of the Dawn as soon as possible. I'm going to make it something that you can think of. After the Dawn Deadly Battle, after this patch, we will have prepared a development that is not so easy. And then follow-up question, it is going to be a big back-to-back development. He said, when I did a good cliffhanger from New Eorzea to Ishgard of the Heavens, there was a lot of feedback that it was too cliffhanger. And in the Red Lotus Liberator, it was a little weak for this time. From the Red Lotus Liberator to Jet Black Villains, I don't think... so I think that's from Stormblood to Shadowbringers. Mm-hmm. I don't think I could read the next development at all. This time, to what will happen from here, I think I'm calm. So I think he's happy with Stormblood. I think a lot of people were like, that's it? But Shadowbringers was pretty astounding, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think, and it's not over. And so I think he's talking about from Heaven's Word being too much, Stormblood being too little. He thinks he's nailed Shadowbringers.
Yeah, so it's gonna be interesting to see what that I don't know. I really actually did appreciate the cliffhanger of ARR. It was fascinating to see, even though obviously you still continue to play and go into the cities, and the lore reason was like, well, the guards will arrest you if you weren't so popular or something like that. You know, like they're conspiring against you. But yeah, it was something that really, it was truly a time to behold, honestly. I appreciate that. So I do appreciate these cliffhangers. All right.
So they say, what's with the patch title, Death Unto Dawn? And Yoshi-P responds with his typical, I hope the players will witness what those words represent. So like, nice vagueness. Doesn't mean anything.
He has a kind of a kind of a lore thing that if you guys notice, especially everybody that's in the header of the title, they've all had near-death experiences. They've all had close brushes with death. Like, they are going to be the centerpieces of this. And who will survive? We will have to wait and see. The question is will they do something in this patch, or will we have to wait till part 2? Well,
I don't remember where FS sourced it from, but he reminded us that at one point that the development team is aware that they've let a lot of people have near-death experiences that seem to not have a penalty, mm-hmm. and that the phrasing was odd, but it was something to the effect of that kind of builds up a tab. You get these near-death experiences, and that tab must be paid. And so I think between now and 6.0, there are a number of characters that have a tab that must be paid, and that they're something has to cost something, it has to mean something. In this main story, you'll go to a place called the Golden Plains, Pagarzan. This is the home of the Amalja. So this is our new zone. So we're going to 6. So we're starting to build towards 6.0, right?
This is the new dungeon. Yeah.
So we're going to our new dungeon. What kind of area is it? In patch 5.4, the agreement was signed between Limsa and the Kobolds. Morliv's determination to give that's not Melwib's determination to give
her life,
his life,
yeah.
Her life, yeah, mm-hmm. Her life is what made this happen. I was like, that's not how I remember that cutscene playing out. In it, the Amalja people are depicted after the development that it is unlikely to go so easily. I feel Eorzea as a whole is heading for a large circle because of the barbaric god problem that is primals, I assume, is being cleared up with the feud with the beast tribes is being settled. Yoshi-P has paid a lot of attention when writing the Kobold stories in 5.4, but I don't think we will really hold hands with each other that easily. In the case of the Kobold, there should be a person who does not think it pleasantly on the Limsa and Kobold side, naturally only by regretting the act that the chief himself has become tempered, and regretting the act which has been made, and believing man's resolution named Melvib now against Limsa Lamensa. I also drew in Ishgard the Heavensward, but even if the will is high, the grudge that has been fighting for more than 1,000 years cannot disappear so easily. I'm going to be particularly careful about those points. It's becoming one, but each leader has advocated it as a slogan to the last, and it is that we must continue to walk together for generations to be able to do it in a true sense. I can't keep drawing around here endlessly, but I do check with that intention. So I think at this point we're starting to address the fact that the lore has built up a lot of conflict, and it is easy to have that conflict. It's really frustrating when TV shows do that, where they're like, okay, well, I think it's time for us to just put down our swords, and then either one of two things happens. Somebody goes, no, we can't, and then there's a battle, and it's like, oh, so we can never mature. Or they go, you know what, you're right, we're cool. And I think it's just saying, like, it's not that black and white.
Yeah. Usually these kind of things and those kind of wounds end up getting paid by people who make the ultimate sacrifice. Somebody who lays down their life in terms of that, then that, that unfortunate act causes people to like, oh, what are we doing? Like, why are we, whoa, like it usually that seems to be kind of what happens. And that, I don't know, I kind of feel like that's what it could be setting up, but we'll have to wait and see, obviously.
Yeah, without revealing anything, the interview itself is not revealing. I would say that we have had characters and events in recent patches set that up as a possibility. You draw a place where there are parts that are difficult to understand as in reality. And Yoshi-P says that's right. It's not good or bad, but even if you look at modern America, even if you see a presidential election, the atmosphere of it is still being torn and divided and has not easily disappeared. So when Mr. Trump says things like, maybe I'll run in 2024, the confrontational mood easily rekindles. Once a wedge is put in, it does not come off so easily, so I want to draw it carefully. Of course, this varies from race to race, and sometimes it's simple to return a favor you receive, or it may not. I hope people will think that it's a story of how to become one towards the ideal. This game, more so than many games, chooses to take gaming as a art form that can address real life without the realness of real life, right? When we talk about politics and somebody is realizing that their job is in the balance, or their livelihood is, their ability to protect their property or raise their kids in the balance, it's not like it's easy to be offended and not be willing to back down. For me to say something that's going to drastically change Brian's life and him not to agree with it, it's hard to compromise. But I love video games as a medium because he can tackle things that, like, just reading his answer there's like a tiny bit of tension that builds up. Like, well, how far are we going with this? Like, we don't like to talk about this because it's tense and it comes back very quick. But I'm excited that we can address similar concepts and see an example of one way it might unfold in a world where if it doesn't unfold nicely, I just log out. Like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So next I would like to ask you about the final chapter of Yorha, Dark Apocalypse. This time you mentioned in the live letter the other day that you will be bringing it to Ni Automata. What will happen? In terms of PR, this is it. It's better to say that. It's a little hard to say, and his little traditional smile. But this time, Yuku's Worldviews is full of scenarios and content, so I would like you to witness it. Ere I say this and that, I think that playing over and over again in a limited resource is a good thing about Nier game design. There is a story that can be on and on and on, and has been learned from playing from a wide angle. I don't know what that
Multiple
is.
angles. So yeah, it seems interesting because Google Translate gave me a slightly different one. But yeah, it's something where you can learn a different understanding from playing and seeing the game from different angles. And
Okay.
Nier is a repeat, like you beat it and then you play it again and you beat it and things change and etc. So
Yeah. Okay. Context is everything.
Yes.
This crossover with 14 may also be regarded as one of those episodes. Various elements will appear, so please be surprised to see it. On the content side, there is also a device that is not available in the previous battle content created for this one. I think that those who like battle, including directing, will be surprised. For me personally, I haven't been attached to the Nier raids.
Yeah, I have yet to.
I like the content, but I don't find myself craving when I queue for it and the queue time says it's 20 minutes. I just unqueue and do something else. Like I don't find it something that I actively miss. It's something I do when the community does it and I move on. Honestly, for me, PvP in 14 falls in a very similar place. I enjoy it, and I wish that there was more of it. And so I think this crossover event, because I do want 24-man content, I am looking forward to next expansion, us moving to something that's truly original that I can be more attached to.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you don't think that you'll want to delete game data. That's not the case, right? Probably, but he said he was going to destroy the data center a lot. In the original background music by Keiichi Okabe this time, of course there is. It will be the last in a series, so it is true that there are no new songs here all of a sudden. So we wrote a wonderful song. Again, this time there seems to be a weekly quest after the dungeon, but this will likely be conscious of the orbit of the Nier series mentioned earlier. No, I'm not aware of the lapse, but it's for story development. I can't say anything more, so simply clear the content and complete all the quests. Just think that it will not be. And then also siege battle system adjustments to a one-horse fight. Up next is Save the Queen. What kind of story will it be this time? So this is our Queens of Gunhilder stuff. So this is our Boja. As for the story, Save the Queen will be completed this time. What kind of thought does Nail Van Garnus of the Garland Empire have? How do the warlords who follow it burn their obsession with building the Royal Road Rakudo? I don't know what that is. It is an enemy, but I think that the place comes into view as Mr. Matsuno's writings taste. There are many attractive characters on the enemy side, but that's also a highlight. Since the Southern Bojin front is a battlefield, I hear that feelings sink a little as a picture, but what kind of place is the new area?
Yeah.
What do you want? What do you want from the new area? We've been in a battle-torn landscape this whole time.
One of the strengths of Eureka was just its design, its beauty, its fantasy in that regards, and obviously coming out of and off the first is it's very kind of high fantasy. I'd love to see some beautiful design. Now, what I think it might be is it might be something more related to, like the Empire. So it could be like we're on this massive giant airship. I don't know. Or something like probably not in the air, like we've destroyed it and yet the zone still persists so people can clear it, but I would love to see something obviously with a little bit more color, a little bit more brightness to it. And I don't know how you play that out with the fact that like this is a war, like that's where it's like this is thematically there, but yeah, like if you take these systems and put them in Eureka, then I'm like that would be so exciting for me to see, personally speaking. Anyway,
a lot of brown.
It's a lot of brown.
Let's see what Yoshi-P says. He says it's still a battlefield, but compared to Boja, it has a little better view because it's a plateau. There are many changing shapes. There is also a water side. It's not that gloomy, but it's not a sunny fantasy world. Shadowbringers had a strong fantasy color, but I think that it was straight away different than Heavensward. However, it's not that interesting in one side, and because it's an MMO, there is a place that the whole balance is balanced and stands out only when various situations are combined. While everyone is happy with a beautiful fantasy, do I need to do this? In fact, Matsuno-san was very troubled from the early days. But as a director, do I need to dare do this? Is that Heavens or ARR? What is that? It's in quotes. Okay. I think that it's a little different to clean up everything because it's a fantasy world. Therefore, the taste changes somewhat with Bojin, and it does not change the place called War Record that continues the whole. I would like you to see the end by all means. It takes a ton of time to bring such things together, such stories that are in the past and people's thoughts. I think that is such a historical aspect and strongly depicted in Save the Queen. Of course, I can understand the feeling that there is a painful reality, and I don't want to see that in the game. However, I think that this is only because there is a slow rush and it becomes too much to draw only the place where it is too beautiful. I think there can be both of these elements. This is one aspect of the Final Fantasy series, so I hope you can look forward to it. So, a little brighter, not Eureka.
Not Eureka.
A little brighter.
Not the first.
Yeah, I think Deliverum was plenty bright for me.
Deliverum has a lot of bright. Because it's less destroyed
Spell
by
effects
war. You have less trenches and things like that. So yeah, absolutely, I agree with you.
It's got an Alice in Wonderland theme that doesn't become as playful as if that very same zone had taken place in Ilmeg. Okay. It would have been like true Alice in Wonderland dialed to the nines. So in Eureka, there was Baldesian Arsenal. After that was over, now we have Deliverum, and we're going into Zatanor Plateau. Is there a last dungeon in this new area? There is a large number of content to capture that is also quite elaborately made. Of course, it's not as difficult as Deliverum. If you're still challenging Gunhilda Savage, this Save the Queen will unlock the rank limit and increase the number of lost actions you can use. In addition, training after rank is also implemented, so I would love you to use them to challenge to become even stronger. Deliverum Savage is designed to make it relatively easier for players to clear as they become stronger rather than relaxing the content itself. They hinted at this in the previous live letters that there would be an aspect of 5.55 that would make Deliverum Savage more doable for people that wanted the Cerberus mount, because 48-man Savage, especially out of the gate, proved to be a lot more than I think people were prepared to bite off.
Okay.
Is there any other new mechanism? We received a lot of system feedback, so there were more detailed changes than the new mechanisms. For example, this time there is a new one-horse race, or those fates, with a little higher difficulty. Because those are more challenging to people than we imagined, those who continue to fall out of the lottery for a long time and those who were preparing for the lottery with a great goal, I received a lot of feedback. So this time, if we continue to challenge the lottery, we are also adjusting as accumulating points internally. I think what they're saying here, what I'm gathering from that,
if you're not winning the lottery, then you're kind of getting some background points to kind of help boost you, right? Is that what you're reading?
Yeah, because you're not getting medal if you're not getting selected to go into the events, if you're not getting into Castrum, if you're not getting into you move from the fates, the skirmishes, into the boss fates, right? And so if you're not getting selected, it can get very hard to get some of the currencies and all of that. So I think what they're saying is there's not going to be a new system layered on top. We're going to be tuning. It sounds like we're tuning existing systems, which I think is a better way to mature the content this late in the cycle.
I agree.
To put it in, ideally, to tune it to a point where it will age well. Because one of the problems with these systems is when they're largely engaged, they work one way, and then when we move into the next expansion and somebody tries to come taste this, it may not function with less than 40 people in the zone.
Well, imagine that. Imagine not being able to rank up, and it's like, well, hey, you're stuck, and then you have to go and organize or get with a group like, hey, help my friend and let's all go do this for love of our fellow man.
Yeah, and so they asked a little more like, how does that work? And so he said, right now, this is how this works. And so we know this. So right now, your chances have been given to people who meet the conditions. lottery rights. So I don't know if he's talking about the one-on-ones or if he's talking about the ability to get into the boss fates, or if he's
Both,
talking about
actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But from there, as soon as everybody's met conditions, the lottery was even probability, and I didn't know who would be selected. From the next time, once it's out of the lottery, if not selected, you accumulate points, and it'll be easier to be selected for the next time. And so I think the idea that you go in and you continue to not get hit by things and you don't get selected for the one-on-ones, or you continue to not make it into the next boss fate or cast room, they could reevaluate how these things get tracked so that you kind of build up a priority so that next time, if everybody meets the same things, somebody who hasn't had a chance at the one-on-ones could get a turn.
Yeah.
And so when will that be? Patch point 5.55.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
That's when that's happening.
Yep. So now we're going to talk about the new weapon. This will be the final of the weapon time. So this will also be completed this time. So we're finishing Sorrows That Were Lit. Could you tell us about the story highlights? Tell us about the Sorrows That Were Lit story. There's no way he says it. And so it's said to be the most saved story in the history of 14.
Mine says unhelpful.
Unhelpful. Thank you. I'm glad your translation is different than mine.
Yeah. It's like together by our powers combined.
But I think the highlight this time is whether it will land without salvation. I think our love for robots exploding in many ways. The rest is strangely popular. Is there a place for uncles to play an active? Is there a place for Gaius, I assume, to play an active role again? I hope you will look forward to seeing what kind of ending we will have, including that. And so he says that it can only be used to incite. I think the community team will probably be in trouble, so at least it won't be implemented as is when things are open to the player. So I don't. This is poorly translated, so this section I don't know. But we'll just move on then.
Yeah, we'll keep it rolling.
All right. In the story I mentioned earlier, I think that the G Warrior will come out again. I spent too much money to keep it in the hangar for a long time. It's also a noteworthy point whether the G Warrior will play an active part, or if so, what kind of appearance will be. On February 25th, the free trial account was restricted from entering PvP content. This was caused by nuisance on the front line, but could you tell us about the current situation after the restrictions and future prospects? Keep in mind, guys, that they said those restrictions ideally were temporary while they came up with a more permanent solution.
And the core reason was that was how a lot of people doing win trading. It's like they would put themselves up, guarantee themselves the win, against free trial accounts. No risk, no harm, boom. Anyway.
So, in a step-by-step explanation, the fact that you are getting around it became the problem, and this timer moving characters at an abnormal speed, so you're kind of progressing abnormally, is because you are forcibly rewriting packets using some kind of tool. It is a tool that people who are so-called suppliers use, because I think people were selling a lot of this too. Of course, there is a mechanism that makes changes to the program that make the tool unusable as much as possible, or automatically bans the account when detected. However, in this case, what the trader was using for certain clear purposes to make real money is only used for the purpose of harassing people who are playing normally. If it was the first case, such sabotage was repeated, especially by the individual, not the trader. This has already gone beyond harassment. I wonder what the purpose is. When we are contacted about such misconduct, we investigate immediately. We hold down evidence for the crime, and we immediately suspend the account. I can't go into too much detail, but normally you can find out what kind of hardware you're playing with and what line you're connecting to your ISP, your IP address to for 14. That's why if someone who's banned can create another free trial account right away and try to harass someone, they'll be caught right away. But this time, I'm harassing them repeatedly until I change the hardware and lines. In other words, you're doing it until you spend money. We decided it was urgent. So as the biggest defense, we blocked PvP on our free trial account. This allows the harassment hurdle to be significantly higher because in order to participate in PvP content, you need to level your character more than a certain amount in your billing account. It's creepy. you can't see the intention? Is it just harassment? Regardless of the player's intentions, we are close to interfering with our business. So we are discussing how far we can take through measures and measures. 14 is also like Dome and Mahjong, but I designed it with the hope that you can access various types of content from low level with a free trial account. And like all of Final Fantasy XIV, I would love for you to lower the billing hurdle to try various things and see if there's any content you like first. However, when I was directed only at malicious intent, that I did not understand the intention this time, I knew there was no defense method. I knew that there was no defense method unexpectedly. While we're taking steps to prevent free trial accounts from rushing into PvP content, we need to build a two-way solution. If you are prevented from continuing Final Fantasy XIV service, what specific measures will you take? And what to do with the point that there is no defense when the good intention is followed and wanting as many people to try the game as cheaply as possible. For the time being, the in-game impact is gone. We don't know if we'll be coming back from here even using a billing account. Therefore, we will continue to identify, thoroughly pursue the malicious acts that have been carried out so far. We will continue to operate in a position to examine the game with the highest importance if there is any weird sign or from a report from a player. So this was much more detailed than they gave in the previous letter about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Substantially more.
And what's interesting is that from that aspect, it's like the system, what I'm reading into it is that they need to design the system in which that, especially from an appeals perspective, because it really isn't, it's like, okay, and we've heard horror stories of the Square Enix support system in and of itself. So it's like, hey, if you're going to have more countermeasures, and especially, let's say somebody gets caught up accidentally, like how do you go and resolve that that aspect? We covered it somewhat here on the channel, especially when they were banning RP players, from that, and that was just a rogue GM that was causing that issue. So, yeah.
It's enough so far, but this isn't the end of it. So does that mean more measures would be taken in the future? What we can promise is to ensure the safety and quality of Final Fantasy XIV service, and we will continue to make further efforts to enhance it. At this time, I'm stuck in a hole of good intentions, but I'm not going to throw it away. I want to further upgrade the world, take care of it, and make it more comfortable, fun, and safe to play in. However, I do not report directly to you what kind of attitude we'll seek for punishment for those who have acted like this. I have no intention of simply ending it, but if I do something wrong, I'll be punished firmly. I hope you don't mind too much. Have fun playing the game and report anything wrong you see. In that case, we will do well with the highest priority. So he's basically just saying, just be just don't be stupid.
They also need the ability, for more reporting. Right now, the only thing you can do is right-click, report for RMT, and they need a system in that case. Yes, that can be abused, but then you have to have that kind of appeals and have it offer evidence. But when you right-click and report, could easily just capture that conversation for review as evidence. So then if you're found reporting somebody maliciously, that's a good...
And if it gets multiple reports, if you get multiple reports from users, then that starts to mean something. If what you don't want is me and Brian and all my friends are going to just group report you and that's going to spam you, then that's where technology behind stuff like circles and stuff starts to matter, where you start to say, you know what? Brian and I, as far as a vote against you, are counting the same because we're in voice chat and we both don't like you. That doesn't necessarily mean you did something wrong, but somebody who we've never played with is also in our party and is also reporting you. That's a problem. And so I think there is technology out there now to start kind of tracking a lot of this. And when they added right click report RMT, the way that menu works looks like it was designed to have other things. And so it's like you right click, you open up the folder and there's only one thing in it. So I think we just need more things in the folder. All right. In the past live letter, the postponement of Ultimate was reported. In a previous interview, we talked about how remote work has been prepared, and so there was little impact for future development schedules. After that, a state of emergency was declared again. Is there still a positive impact on development? And so this is largely due to the peculiarity of the content called SE, is that Ultimate? The big factor is that the content is very difficult to produce. The number of battle mechanics is orders of magnitude higher than normal battle content. So even if you actually assemble it according to specs, trial and error continues because it is too high or it is too low for the expected difficulty. After it takes shape to some extent, 8 amazing members in the development team play in crazy ways, verify one by one whether each mechanic can really be solved, change the damage, transition figures from each phase, and then play it again and verify. Because it is necessary to operate with a person's by hand and check it, including the degree of them getting fatigued from continued concentration, this is a major factor in scheduling when producing this series. The 8 people who participate in the coordination of the series all have their own work independent of this. There are a variety of things, such as the bosses for Alliance raids, the producer for the Polar series, the balance of jobs, system changes in the process of developing with minimal impact on from the coronavirus. The work priority is higher in the content production that I will be in charge of, and many people will play. Therefore, the adjustment time was cut down quickly. In the case of a series, it is a very critical problem that the playtime of and the adjustment is reduced because it proceeds with the production while playing when it becomes shaped to extent, instead of assembling it all at once above. So I think that last starts to get a little wordy, but basically what I think he's saying here is, like, this is we've talked about Ultimate getting delayed. We've seen this before where they've talked about the cost of developing Ultimate. It is not 4 Ultimate fights. It is not 1 Ultimate fight. It is a different thing. It fatigues developers. It fatigues playtesters. We don't have a PTR. We don't want a PTR for Ultimate. We want it to be the surprise, the spectacle that people have never seen. And you want it to be hard, but not impossible. Yeah. And so they have to tune it right to that threshold. If they forget a strategy and somebody figures it out and it's not against the rules, it goes down and then it's over. That becomes the new strategy. It's super easy and that's it. But if you tune it the other way, this is content that's meant to last forever and ever. And you do want people to be able to clear it. I think work from home has made this even harder. I think in general, you get a lot of time and resources back on the table by simply cutting it. It's a sad loss for the community as a whole, not just people who clear Ultimate. Yeah. Knowing that there is something impossible at the far end of difficulty is healthy for the game. Having community events that we can bond around, having content that people can stream that show us what the top of a battle system looks like, whether or not we'll ever touch it. These are important things. So I think they've just been stuck. So the person in charge of planning and the production of this time said, I think that if I extend my working time to the max, I will be able to do something about it. So I want that permission. At the time, he'd already done tremendous amount of work, including anything other than that. So I couldn't really give permission. The schedule is broken. It's my responsibility. In addition, I thought that what was completed through super overworked by not only one person, but also multiple people would be really interesting. If it is true, if you release it with the part that you wanted to, it will surely be transmitted to the player. Everyone has a family. In terms of cost estimates, we've gotten to the point where we can release without breaking the work-life balance in 2 more months, but that's just a trade-off between delaying the launch of the expansion. So we could have just delayed the whole expansion by 2 months and gotten Ultimate, but we already delayed the expansion by some number of months. So you're talking about the expansion possibly being pushed into winter. You fall into a Shadowlands category, where at this point you're just trying to keep it in the same calendar year. Yeah. I don't think that's a good trade-off. 5.5 is going to feel long for a lot of people that play this game a lot right now. Yeah. And as much as, I wanted to see Ultimate, and as much as the Ultimate Raiders as a community that I'm glad they get this content, it's unfortunate because they did also say it's coming in 6/1. So we know that most likely would fall into 2022 anyway. So yeah, it'll slide. Yeah. Ultimate will slide into next year, but not all of the expansion will. So that's really nice. I think players are really looking forward to Endwalker. I think that's what Finale of the Dawn is. Yeah. Endwalker. So there was no opinion to shrink and push both of them. After explaining the situation properly, it was concluded that it would be more enjoyable to create work-life balance and deliver the highly motivated products in 6.1. I concluded that I would try to find out if there was a way to make this series a little more systematic and efficient. So when people asked me if the declaration of a state of emergency is directly affecting me, I still feel like I'm being strangled with a soft, cottony head. The wrinkles of the body inevitably stopped at the end with a high construction difficulty, and it just didn't fit. What's more is it's hard to keep 8 developers in quarantine for a long time. In addition, remote development, when said that the efficiency is 100% compared to for at 99, 98, it's lacking by a little. I don't want to say it's because of COVID, but after a little bit of trimming, we just have to make a choice. As a director and a producer, I came to this decision. So then what was it? A last minute timing that decided this? I don't want to tell you anything that disappoints everyone on the air, and the development team wanted to make me stick to the last minute, but I was sticking to the last minute. There are people who wanted to watch the world first race, or they were trying to gather fixed members, or they were trying to adjust their work, and I have seen many of these comments. I'm really sorry that it was delayed.
Yeah, so they were waiting, like, the decision was made, like, okay. And yeah, so that's kind of where that came down to it. So he was like, maybe a miracle would have happened, and hey, it's good, it's ready to go, okay, rather than sit here and say we have to make that call. So they dragged it out as long as they could, obviously, without then told us when the decision was made, rather than say it might be delayed, and I appreciate that.
So open beta testing of PS5 will also begin with 5.5 on April 13th. Maybe something like the original PS5 Final Fantasy XIV edition would be released in the future. What about that? And Sony asked him, do you want to do it? We can't say anything, but of course Final Fantasy XIV is a title blessed with enthusiastic players. But it's still difficult to get the PS5. So I don't think there is time to make another version. I hope that in the future there will be something that can be changed. First of all, I'd love to see more stories like the person who was present in the interview today, who seems to have passed the PS5 lottery. And the interviewer says, I envy you. There's no sign of hitting it all. Anyway, I keep applying, and that's it. If you give up, it's over. The trick is not to regret every time you fail to get the lottery, not to be disappointed every time. It's the same as ding. I don't know what that says. Even if you fail to fall in the lottery, it's like, yes, next application. If you do it, you'll hit it someday. The people who are winning the lottery around me are also people who check in the detail, and they keep repeating their applications. And so this is just Yoshi-P saying he still hasn't got a PS5.
Yep.
It is a lottery.
Straight
like
up.
Getting a GPU. So there will not be a Final Fantasy XIV PS5 because PS5 can't make enough PS5s. They're not going to be like, okay, now we got to spin up a new type. Like, it's impossible to get PS5s. I don't know. Maybe some third-party Etsy person can try to come up with like a themed wrap or something that you can put on it. I don't know. Fans are amazing. People do crazy stuff. So they now ask him to send a message to the fans. First of all, the PS5 version open beta test will come out the same time as patch 5.5, but I will announce the details on we're going to hear this Friday.
Live letter. Yeah.
Live letter. However, how long the open beta test will be held, I think we will stretch to formal. We'll move to the official version as soon as stability is available. So until that day, I don't think it'll take form. If you have PS5s all over the world, you can use the free trial version, or you can play the PS5 right now as it is on your account. So it's running the PS4 version, the PS4 Pro version quickly. So please feel free to join us. At that time, if there is part here that I feel is a little strange, it would be helpful if you could let me know. So I think he's asking for feedback right there. So if you're having issues with the beta test, let him know. As for 5.5, we've talked about it. The main story is split into 2. April 13th, we will release patch 5.5. And in between, a digital fan fest, and probably around the same time, we assume kind of late May, we will have patch 5.55. He's not confirming late May. That's just my personal guess. We will release the main scenario part 2. We will be pushing towards Endwalker, including the contents announced at the digital fan fest. As with content, I think it's time to raise the tension about the main story, each character, what the Warrior of Light will look like. The patch itself is the same, and the Digital Fan Fest is digital, but we are planning something that can be enjoyed in both directions, as well as watching.
Woo!
So I would be happy if you could pay attention to it. Thank you very much.
That was an epic amount of information and something to obviously be excited about.
I don't think he takes interviews that long when it's in English because of the translator.
Yeah.
That felt like a long interview.
Right. When you don't have to translate it, like you get more questions.
You get the same 30 minutes everybody else gets.
Yeah, you just get more questions. So that's just the way it is in that regards. But guys, let us know what you're thinking. Obviously, if you're still here with us in the end of this video, thank you. You are incredible. And then at the same time, join us either tomorrow for Outriders. So actually, this will be up. We'll be live with Outriders on Ginger Prime and Work to Game. And then also, we'll be live with this live letter on Friday as well. So you guys tune in. Hopefully enjoy. And then we'll be posting up lots of summaries for you guys here over the weekend. Lots of probably things to talk about. The trailer. Oh my gosh, it's going to be freaking amazing. So hopefully you're excited as we are excited. But yeah, we'll wrap it up. Chris, you have any final thoughts about like anything we saw here today that you want to talk about before we end this almost semi-podcast?
No, the interviews are going to get longer as we get closer to Endwalker, especially if there is no media tour. They're going to want this information to get out there. So he's going to continue to take interviews of varying lengths that some of this information will be repeated, some of it will be rehashed, but in here, these are little nuggets about when a change in translation or a change in phrasing reveals something that makes the light bulb come on. So you'll hear us, we see these questions over and over in Q&As, and it's like, yeah, that's the question we've already heard. And then he says something a little bit differently, and it goes, oh, that changes the last 6 times I've heard this question.
Yeah.
And so especially with translation, these interviews are very valuable.
So guys, that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you didn't, hit that dislike button. That way we know what you like and what you don't. But for Work to Game, my name is Brian.
My name's Chris.
Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you have a fantastic day. We hope to see you in our next one. But until then,
take care.